Captain Umar Aliyu, a retired Army captain, has joined us again. And you heard what we're discussing with Professor Oyebode, trying to ask the questions that will evoke some kind of meaning in the hearts and minds of Nigerians, especially what has happened before and what is happening now. The key thing is that every Nigerian, irrespective of party affiliation, religion, or where you are from, they desire a peaceful, credible, and acceptable election. Are we moving in that direction? Because we're asking, as he rightly said, the key thing about signing of this accord amounts to nothing if we really can't hold them to account legally. But as a security analyst, what can we read from this that will make us say, hey, wait a minute, these are the leaders. I don't think I want to put my life on the line for them at this particular point in time.
Yes. You're going to agree with me that if you've actually monitored the trend as far back as 6 months to elections, you will discover that there is what we call the ceremony aspect of it, and there's what we call the life aspect of it. The ceremony aspect of it has to do with the public statements, the signing of peace accords, but then post that, you're not seeing utterances, you're not seeing behaviors, social behaviors that are in sync with what the stipulates of the agreement are. So you see people making what I want to call very acidic statements. In fact, I've never seen it so severe in elections in Nigeria. Me and you have seen about the same number of elections, as you said earlier. And this particular, of course, Professor has seen much more than, exactly. So this particular elections, in fact, it's been like a war of words. You see things that shouldn't actually be identified with parties or governance. I have seen the present incumbent carry on in ways that rubbish the magnanimity of incumbency. Okay? And when you do that, there is what you call the leader-follower effect. It's like a child-parent effect. You know, those days when I was a boy, anything my dad does is correct. I just go ahead and do it. And when you find those you look up to speaking in a particular way, you are actually going to be motivated to act in that way, regardless.
Does this mean that you trust this peace accord that was signed?
No, from a security enthusiast's perspective, peace accord or no peace accord, let's not be taken by surprise. Nothing should be left to chance. People are going to be given what I want to call first aid security tips. Other than first aid security tips, law enforcement agencies should not just rest on their hours thinking because the two main figures have signed an accord or an agreement, then we will live happily ever after. It will not happen. In fact, if you observe, when you are prepared, when you have a resilience plan, when you have a contingency plan, the threat almost always never occurs. If you rest on accords and you refuse to do any plan B, no resilience, the threat almost always occurs. The correlation is simple. If the threat knows that you are asleep, it's going to come looking for you. But if the threat knows that you are sitting and even expecting that it will show up, you almost always never see it. So this...
Prof is smiling. What thoughts do you have on this as well?
No, well, what the captain is saying reminded me of my discussions at the Defense College about 3 weeks ago, where I went to give a lecture on war, the nature, and causes of war. And I cited Helvetius, that he who wants peace must always prepare for war.
Exactly.
So that's what he reminded me of. He wasn't present at my lecture, but he was representing just what I told the participants. Now, war and peace are two sides of the same coin. So if we have peace being profiled by the parties, I agree with him. The security agents, the law enforcement agents should not be sleeping. They must be preparing for that contingency. Okay? It's a contingency plan. What happens in case things fall out? We are hoping that things will not go all right. But the situation is such is that the country is almost on the edge, knife edge, in fact. It's only if these elections transpire in a credible fashion that we will witness the results with a sense of euphoria. We'll all be happy and sigh of relief that, thank goodness, it all went as planned. And the British Prime Minister has sent word, Barack Obama has spoken to Nigerians. It seems as if the entire world is watching Nigeria. So that should put the leaders on notice that they should ship up if they don't want to ship out. Nigeria is being tested, and ECOWAS chairman came and said, look, there are going to be 5 elections in the sub-region this year. We are starting. If we get it wrong, so many other examples will go wrong. Then the whole of Africa, I don't know how many elections we have in Africa. So the way Nigeria plays it out this time around will affect, in fact, like Cameron said, we are the conscience of Africa. 1 out of every 5 Africans is a Nigerian. So the nuisance value of Nigeria internationally is massive, incredibly so. So it's not just a local thing. It has international implications and reverberations.
And before you joined us, we asked the captain his thinking of the move of the closure of borders.
That for me was a panic measure. It even exacerbates the sense of instability. A self-confident country will not take, you close borders when there's a real emergency. I'm glad the Minister of Interior has swallowed his vomit because the matter has been put back on the shelf. The borders are open. It's a sign of weakness that you can't manage your affairs. It's a panic action. Shut the borders. It's as if armed robbers are coming, close the doors. No. Make sure the immigration people do their job. We don't need to send wrong signals to the international community that war is going to break out in Nigeria. It was a bad move. It was a faux pas. And I'm glad they've rescinded that particular move.
Captain Ali, let me just ask you just very quickly now. We also get information that there have been a measurable amount of weapons being proliferated across the West African sub-region. Can this be a threat to Nigeria's elections and to other elections that will be happening across the continent?
Well, what we do or do not do about it will determine whether it becomes a threat or not. I must tell you that within the West African sub-region, particularly the Sahel Savannah, there's been a weapon proliferation threat aspect of the goings on there. I want to refer you and our viewers to a very interesting film. It's called Orphans of the Sahara. It was a documentary that was aired a while ago, but you could just go there and watch it and begin to understand what the threat quotient is like when it comes to arms proliferation in the West African subsector, when it comes to the challenges we're seeing in the Northeast, and by extension, the threat to our elections. Okay? Orphans of the Sahara is just about, call them the displaced persons, just like we have displaced persons in the Northeast today. But these ones were displaced when Gaddafi fell. They were his errand boys, they were the ones fighting his wars, and suddenly they were ejected. So they are in no man's land out there in the desert, and they seek a patch of land for themselves. They seek a home country for themselves. It's not unrelated to the scramble for, the sudden scramble for a caliphate by Boko Haram. They didn't start on the issue of a caliphate, if you observed. It was later in their insurgency that the issue of a caliphate came up. And this issue of a caliphate could actually be concatenated with the fact that somewhere along the line, these homeless ex-errand boys of Gaddafi jumped on the Boko Haram bus. And when they merged forces, the measure succeeded. The next thing is, let's carve out a place for ourselves. So arms proliferation will always be an issue. But then how you manage it, or what you don't do to manage it, is what is going to actually inform where it begins to affect you. Today, as I speak to you, there are fears of people who have amassed arms and may bring them out to respond, to react to election results or to have skirmishes. And it's not far from the truth, because if you look at the nature of clashes, the Ombati, the Mend, the, what do you call these other boys that have always...
I'm afraid that that's where we have to let it go. The studio is still very open. I would like to thank you so very much, Captain Umar Aliyu. Thank you for sharing your insights with us, and we do hope we'll have you pretty much later back in the Nigeria 2015 studios.
You're welcome.
Of course, Professor Akin Oyebode, you've been fantastic, and thank you for obliging us your time. We'd like to thank you so very much for watching. The Nigeria 2015 studio is still very much open. This time we're looking at the other side of the election, the business side of election, the political side of election. You want to call it business and politics, economics of politics? Yes, that's what the studio will be looking at as we hand you over to our business team to look at Nigeria 2015. I'm Sulaiman Alede.